Welcome everyone to today's session, Power BI updates for enterprise analytics, where we're going to review the latest updates from the Power BI ecosystem for Q1 and Q2 of 2023. So I know some of you were on part one that we did last month. And there was just so many updates that we wanted to break it up into two parts. So this will be part two of this ongoing series. And the way that we typically do this is in the form of a live presentation with demos, which is what we're going to do today, as well as a blog with some pre-recorded demos. So if you prefer to consume the data that way or go back and revisit it, you can always go to our website and check out our blog. Here you can see the blog for part one, which has this little synopsis as well as a recorded GIF of the feature demo, and you can click to enlarge it and see this in action as well there. The agenda for today is to really set the stage and talk about what this series is all about. And then we'll move into updates for three different types of users. We have updates for consumers, updates for report designers, and Power BI developers. And then we also have updates for admin and users that manage content in the Power BI service. And then finally, we'll wrap up with some updates we're excited about and open it up for questions at the end. So if you have some questions, go ahead and leave that in the Q&A panel. We'll also be making this recording available to you afterwards as well. Okay. So a little bit about me. My name is David Kettinger, and I've been with Preferred Strategies for 7.5 years now. And most of that time was spent as a data analytics consultant, helping our customers deploy Power BI with our quick launch solution. So I've been using Power BI for really the past 10 years. Before Preferred Strategies, I was using it at the University of Colorado in grad school. So it's pretty crazy to think that we're almost on a decade of the Power BI platform. So just a quick overview of Preferred Strategies. We help companies turn their enterprise data sources into trusted and powerful analytical models that provide a single source of truth for enterprise analytics. And we do this with our quick launch solution, and that will be what we use in our demonstrations today. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just turn my video off so it doesn't interfere with my upload speed. So go ahead and stop that and go ahead and jump into the meat of the presentation. So usually we do this on a quarterly basis, but we're sort of playing catch up with these last two installments, which is why we had the part one and part two. But as you can see in this interactive Power BI release plan report, there's quite a few updates that have taken place over the first half of this year. And if I hover over March here, you can see that there's actually 42 planned features for March alone, which is one of the reasons we had to do two installments of this. But really, we comb through all these updates and we try to present them back to you in a digestible manner, and try to filter out only the ones that are most important for enterprise analytics deployments of Power BI, as opposed to more departmental or smaller deployments. Okay, so moving along, just a quick overview of how the updates will be presented and the status has evolved. We indicate whether or not the feature is in preview or if it's GA, and also if it's a premium feature or not. So that'll be indicated by these checks as well as in the blog. But just a note here, we want to be cautious of deploying preview features into production environments, especially when it's involved with your data architecture or data modeling features. If it's a reporting feature, it might not be as risky or critical, but just wanted to point that out to you. And if for some reason you don't see a feature that we demo today, it's because of really 3 reasons. Either you don't have the preview feature turned on in the Power BI desktop, or you don't have the right permissions in the Power BI service, or your Power BI tenant admin has disabled it. So I can't help you very much with the last 2 scenarios, but for the Power BI desktop, it's pretty easy to control that by just going to a report they have open in the Power BI desktop and going to File, and then Options and Settings, and then Options. And then from here, you can find this Preview Features button, and then you can see all the different preview features available and which ones you have turned on and which ones you have turned off. So just wanted to point that out as well before we jump in here. Okay. So the first set of updates we have is for consumers, and really this isn't the most robust for consumers for this quarter. We have one update here, which is a new Power BI embed experience for Microsoft Teams. So with the latest updates to the Teams integration, business users can multitask a bit better with persisted tab views. And if you were on the session, the last session we did where we showed you how you can use Power BI within PowerPoint, they're bringing a similar experience into Teams where you can use links to configure the tabs instead of the default traditional user interface. So let's go ahead and look at this in action. So if I come to Teams and I come over to one of my teams here, I'll pick on the marketing. And you can see here that I can embed these Power BI experiences into these tabs at the top of my team here. So one of the things that they updated here was the ability to go back to reports that you had open. So in this case, if I come in here and click on one of these tabs, and then I navigate away from this and go to a different tab in the team or a different team, and I come back to this one, it will have taken me back to the landing page. But now you can see it's actually persisting that tab view to really just aid in the user experience. So the next thing I wanted to show you was how you could actually embed one of these. So if you go to the plus tab here, you'll see the Power BI option if it's enabled by your tenant admin. And from here, you can go ahead and load a link. So you can paste a few different types of links. You can just do the links that are in your Power BI browser bar, or you could do links that have been created using the sharing options within the Power BI service, which really brings up an interesting use case where I've seen customers have multiple different versions of the same report to facilitate different teams. But if you go into the Power BI service, you can actually customize your report view. So if I go to Chrome and we open up one of these reports, I can go and I can, let's say that my team is really only concerned with the TV home video product group and specifically the retail channel that we're selling through. You can go ahead and make those filter changes and then go to share here and choose this include my changes button that's been recently added. And then I can hit copy link. And then once I do that, I can come back to Teams and just paste that in here. And what that allows me to do is create these versions of the report that are pre-configured or customized to a specific team and not have to create multiple different versions. So I thought that was a pretty cool use case. Definitely an improvement to the integration. So I wanted to point that out to y'all. All right, so let's go back to PowerPoint and move on to the next section. So quite a few updates for report designers and developers. And the first one I wanted to review with you was the new Azure Maps visual. So this is now generally available, and we'll demonstrate this by going to Power BI Desktop, and we'll open up a report that has a few different maps in it. So the first thing I wanted to point out was that you can see if you have a report that uses the old map visual, that you get this update notification saying, hey, it looks like you're using the old map, and within a year they'll automatically be converted to the new Azure Maps visual. So you can go ahead and choose to update that if you want to. But you can see here, this is an example of the old Azure map and what that experience was like. But you also notice that you had a lot of other maps in Power BI. So, you know, when this visual first came out, it's like, oh, great, another map type in Power BI. But once you've seen all the features that have been added to the Azure Maps visual and review the roadmap, it's easy to see that soon in Power BI there'll be one map to rule them all. And just to show you the different types and how there's the similarities, that we have the filled map. The first one I showed you was the map visual over here in the visualizations pane. The second example is the filled map, which is right next to it. We also have the shape map, which is similar to the filled map, but allows you to customize the base map a little bit and the projection of the map. And then we also have the ArcGIS map type, which if you're in GIS, Geographic Information Systems, and have been working with ArcGIS before, then you'll appreciate this visual and the level of complexity that it adds, but it's not the most intuitive from a user experience, and is also not a native Power BI app. So the last map type that we have here is the Azure Map visual. And if I come in here to look at that, you'll see that we get a pretty similar experience to the shape and filled map. But also, if I come in here and go to the settings options and go to map settings, I have the ability to change this up. So it's not just it's not just a filled map. You can do like bubble maps on it. You can also do heat maps, which is a pretty cool new feature. You can add reference layers. So if you wanted to add, you know, a reference layer for all the national parks in America, you could do that, as well as some traffic layers. And so a lot of cool features being added to this. I really like the controls that have been added. The auto zoom feature is nice, as well as the ability to sort of toggle the orientation of the map. And another cool feature is the selection mode. So if I choose, you know, rectangle select, I can choose, maybe I'm only interested in the Western states. I can start to filter based on the selection tool as well, which I thought was neat. So keep an eye out for updating your existing maps to the Azure Maps visual. As you saw, it will, you know, the older visuals will be deprecated within the next year or two. So the next update I wanted to cover with y'all was the measure-driven data labels, which I thought was a pretty pretty nifty little feature. So I'm going to come back to the Power BI desktop, and this time we'll go to our sales analysis report. And you can see over here on the right side of this page that I have a couple trend charts. And with the trend chart and then other types of charts, I can come in and I can turn on data labels for these. Now, as Stephen Few would say, you want to avoid chart junk if at all possible. So if your users are asking for data labels, then you can enable those. If you don't need them, then maybe leave them off and let the user hover. But the cool update here is the ability to really customize what's being shown in these data labels. So for example, if I come to enable the data label and I scroll down to the values section down here, you'll notice I have the ability to turn on this custom label option. And once I do that, I get the field well to add a measure to display instead of, in this case, the sales amount. So if I wanted to show maybe the sales growth versus prior year, I could come in here and just grab one of these measures in the quick launch model and just drag it into the field well here. And now you can see that I'm controlling the data label value with a measure, which is pretty cool. But we can take this a step further, and we can start to add indicators as well to these visuals. So for example, if I open up this gross profit trend down here, what if I wanted to show my users either a green or red indicator for that value compared to a target? Could be budget, could be prior year. I can come in here and I can do something similar where I turn on the data label, and then I go to the value section again and turn custom label on. But instead of adding one of these predefined measures, I'm going to add a DAX measure that we wrote specifically for this use case, which was to show an indicator for the data labels. So here you can see I have this total gross profit trend measure label. And if I drag that onto the field well here, you can see that instead of showing a value, I'm actually showing a icon or an indicator. Thought this was a pretty cool way to customize your visualizations. And just to show you that DAX, it's really just a simple switch statement, which looks at the variance between gross profit and gross profit from prior year. And then if it's up, it shows the green. If it's down, it shows the red, and then returns the result. So pretty nice feature. Of course, it would be even better if you could just come in here and instead of having to do that, just adjust the color of my markers to use conditional formatting, but can't do that yet. So that's why I wanted to point this new feature out. All right. So the next update we have is new fabric connectors in the Power BI desktop. So in the last installment of this series, we talked about the fabric experience that was brought to the Power BI service and took a look at what that was like. And with the latest update to the Power BI desktop, this fabric experience now is moving to the development tool. So to show you that, I'm going to come to Power BI again, and I'm going to go to the Get Data option. And in here, there used to be a Power BI option, and a lot of our customers connect to Power BI data sets as their data source. And with this latest update, you can see we have the Microsoft Fabric category now, which is in preview. And this is where the Power BI data sets connector lives now. You also notice that data flows lives here, as well as some of these new fabric assets such as lake houses and warehouses and KQL databases. So if you're looking for the Power BI data sets option in the Power BI desktop, this is where it lives now. Okay. So moving along, the next update we have is the new card visual, which is also a preview feature. And after, I don't know, there was many updates to the card visual over the past 7-8 years, but it finally has got some love from the Power BI team in the form of a new visualization type. So I'm going to come in to our Power BI desktop report and come over to this variance analysis page. And you can see here that with the old card visual, which is this guy right here next to the KPI visual, there really had to be some fancy footwork to customize it the way you wanted. So for starters, you had to have multiple different visuals if you wanted to show multiple values. And if you wanted to show indicators, for example, you had to do some like overlapping of visualizations. Here I have a shape on top of the actual card, so it's two visuals instead of one. And then you have to conditionally format all these different cards, and then you had to format them all the way you wanted. So I sort of have a headache to really get these dialed in. And so the Power BI team recognized this and created this new card visual, which you can enable in the preview features option dialog in the Power BI desktop. And go ahead and turn your existing cards into these new cards. So the main thing that I want to show here is really the ability to use one card visualization type, one container, but have multiple values displayed in it. So here you can see I have this new card visualization set up on this report. But instead of having multiple different versions, all I have to do is just drag in different measures into here, and then I just have to format it once, which I thought was really nice. So I can come in here, I can drag these around, which controls the display order of the different values that we have. And if I come into the settings option, you'll see I have some new settings that have been added to this visualization, so I can control the shape and really dial in the appearance of it. I can do things like set up conditional formatting for my callout values, and you can do that all in the same format pane for this single visual. I can also come in to the layout and adjust the orientation of it, and the spacing involved, as well as some of the traditional or other formatting options like shadow and border. And you can even go fancy with this and add images to your card values, as well as these different accent bars. So this is stage one of the new card visual, the current release, which really supports multiple cards in the single container and includes these new formatting settings. Stage two will introduce the ability to add indicators to these, which is what we saw on the old example, where you have the up and down arrows, as well as submetrics to provide more context to the visualization. And then stage three of the release of this new visual takes it a bit further with the ability to split out these cards into groups using the small multiples option, which I covered in part one of this installment as well. All right, so let's move on. So the next thing I wanted to point out for report designers and developers was the ability to work seamlessly in the Power BI desktop with files in OneDrive and SharePoint. So in the last, in part one, I showed you how you can work with files in the Power BI service from OneDrive and SharePoint, and similar updates and enhancements are being made to the Power BI desktop as well. So if I come back to my Power BI desktop report, and let's say I just finished making some changes, if I come to the file option up here in the top ribbon, you see I have this new OneDrive um, option to access my different OneDrive and SharePoint sites and really start to take advantage of the benefits that this provides, which is the ability to have document versioning. So you can roll back to different versions of the report. You can have auto save. You can collaborate with other report authors, and so really just a way to enhance the authoring experience here in the Power BI desktop. And with this new option with working with OneDrive and SharePoint, if I hit save, you'll notice that it has this upload later button here. So if you're working with a big report that takes a long time to upload, you could choose that upload later option, and the it won't sync with the repository until you close the Power BI desktop file. So the other important thing to point out with this update is this new share button up here in the top right. So similar to other Microsoft 365 tools, you have this share experience where you can add people to share this with, or you could just copy the link and send it to people. So this is a cool feature if you're a report author and you're working with a team and you like to iterate before you publish reports to the Power BI service, so, sort of these official versions of the report. But this doesn't replace the need to have a formal publishing and distribution process in order to make sure that everyone's using trusted versions of the reports. And so admins can turn this feature on and off in the desktop by using a tenant setting, which is a new one called users can share links in the desktop. So just wanted to point that out. If you can't share it, you probably have it disabled. And if you are sharing it, make sure that you're sharing it for the right reasons. Okay. So the last update we have here for the designers and developers is the introducing of query limit simulation report settings. So what does that mean? Well, depending upon where a Power BI report's data set is hosted and how, there are different limits to the time a query can run and the amount of memory a query can utilize in the Power BI service before the consumer gets an error. And these limits don't exist in the Power BI desktop, which could cause some confusion why things would work in one place and not work in another. And so in order to minimize this, the Power BI team has introduced this new query limit simulations option in the Power BI desktop. So to show you that, we'll come back to our report here, and I'll go to File, and Options and Settings, and Options. And then I'm going to come to Report Settings for the current file. And if I scroll down here, you'll see I have these query limit simulations. So for existing reports, it is going to be set to no query limits so that you have a continuation of the same experience that you had. But for new reports you create, the auto or recommended option will be chosen. And this really Power BI will try to locate where the report's data set is located and what type of resource it's utilizing, or what capacity it's hosted on, and then choose the option based upon what it finds. And if it doesn't find the right, if it doesn't find the capacity that's used by the report, it'll set it to the shared capacity, which is the safest option. So you can see here, there's the shared capacity. So if your data set's hosted in a Power BI Pro workspace, you could choose that. If it's a premium capacity Power BI data set, you could choose that one. If you're still using analysis services, you could choose either SQL Server on-premise analysis services or the Azure analysis services. You can even come in here and customize this limit to set your own memory limit and timeout limit. So just wanted to point out that if you have some reports or visuals that are taking a long time to run, you can get the same experience that the users will get in the Power BI service. Okay, so that wraps up the updates for designers. So the next section we have is updates for admins. So some pretty cool updates here. The first one I'm going to show you is the ability to edit data models in the Power BI service. And this was a promise that was made years ago, and it's sort of taken a long time to come to fruition, but the Power BI team is working towards that promise and has the first iteration of this feature, which allows us to make changes to data models in the Power BI service. So I'm going to come out to a browser, and let's go to we'll come to a data set landing page where you can see the information about one of your Power BI data sets. And if you have this feature enabled, you'll see this open data model option. And if I click that, we'll see that we have a similar modeling view that we get in the Power BI desktop here in the Power BI service. And you also see that your changes that you make here are permanent and automatically saved with this first iteration. So by no means are we recommending that you use this feature in production. I really just wanted to point it out since it is a new option that admins will have, as well as consumers will see if it's enabled. We still recommend that you stick with tabular editor and traditional source control methodologies for production models, but you can control this feature as an admin from the tenant level as well as the workspace level, which I'll show you here in a second. And with this new with this first iteration of this feature, you can see we can do some basic data modeling operations, like adding new measures, new columns, new table. We can manage our row level security here, and we can even edit relationships here. So it's good to see, the parity being built in between the service and the Power BI desktop, and it'll be interesting to see, this functionality combined with deployment pipelines and how that gets baked into the solution in the future. Okay, so the next feature I wanted to point out was just this new diagnostics view for paginated reports. So a lot of our customers use paginated reports to deliver the highly formatted operational style or financial style reports in the Power BI service, but they also have experienced performance issues. And so this is a nice new feature. In order to show you this, I'm going to come back to the Power BI service, and I'll come over here to the income statement tab. And I'm just going to refresh this, and you'll see that it's loading this this paginated report, and it shows you the amount of rows it takes, but it doesn't show you other performance metrics until now. And so I can come in here to the view option and come to diagnostics, and now I can see the data retrieval time, the amount of rows, how long it took to process, and how long it took to render. Also, I can see whether the capacity was throttled. So if you have a premium capacity and you have some paginated reports that are taking up more resources than you thought, you can sort of troubleshoot with this new diagnostics screen. I just realized that I didn't show you all how to turn on and off the edit your data model options. So I wanted to show you that in the tenant, from the tenant admin level, you can come in here to tenant settings in the admin portal, and you can see there's this new data model settings. And then you can come in here and enable the ability to edit models in the Power BI service, or you can disable it, or you can maybe just open it up to certain security groups. And then from a workspace level, if I were to come back to the sales analytics workspace and go to the workspace settings, and then I go to Power BI in general, you'll see there's this new data model settings that lives at the workspace level too. So if you wanted to maybe test out the feature on a certain workspace, you can do that with the workspace setting here. Right. So moving along with the admin updates, we have the ability to monitor our usage of Power BI tenant from a tenant level perspective. So if Power BI was missing one feature the most, it might have been the ability for admins to audit the usage and the adoption of Power BI assets across the entire tenant. And, sure that there was usage metrics for reports and for in some workspace details, but the scope of that was really too narrow, and the data sets weren't very useful for enterprise deployments. And had other solutions like Azure Log Analytics, but you had to acquire additional Azure licensing and spin up new services, and wasn't the easiest to set up. And I won't even go into the Power BI APIs options where you could build your own data set for monitoring stuff. So this new admin monitoring feature is really nice, and it'll help admins to better manage, administer, and govern their tenant, and understand who's doing what, and track usage and adoption, and support audit and compliance initiatives. So to look at this, I am going to go to the Power BI service, and in here, I'm going to come to my workspaces, and if you're a tenant admin, then you'll see this new admin monitoring workspace at the top above your My Workspace. So when you click in here, you'll notice that you have a couple reports and a couple data sets. So with this first release of this preview feature, you have this feature usage and adoption report and data set, as well as the Purview Hub. Now let's check out both of these. So if I come to feature usage and adoption, I can see the amount of activities that are taking place in my tenant for a certain date range. So in this case, we're looking at a month of activity, and I can see things like what are the most common operations being performed by my users. I can also see who my most active users are and the number of total activities they have. So this is a pretty useful report, and also a useful data set, which we'll connect to here in a second. I haven't been able to get this analysis to run. I'm not sure what this visualization shows, but hopefully they'll fix that in a later release. To show you the Purview data set, I'm actually going to come to our other tenant, which has this which has this enabled. Purview is the ability to apply labels to Microsoft 365 assets, including Power BI assets. So you can mark mark things as confidential or sensitive, and control the lineage of that sensitive data. So I'm going to come here to Purview and go to Overview here, and you'll see that I can see, I can see a few different important things here to track. So I can see what assets have been endorsed. Are they certified? Are they promoted? Do they have no endorsement? Are they labeled? Meaning, in this case, are they general? Are they confidential? Are they public? So you can start to get a breakout of your different Power BI assets by these categories. We can also see, so for endorsements, we can see, of all my assets, what percentage of them are endorsed. So I can see I have only 2.5% of my reports have an endorsement on it. So maybe there's an opportunity to put a policy in place that reports have to be reviewed or endorsed in order to, again, provide that trusted single source of truth for the organization. I can start to filter this by different endorsement types. Just see, what users are endorsing content. Are they the right users, or should that be examined further? I can also see where the endorsed content lives. So I can see I have one workspace that seems to be holding a lot of my certified information, and maybe some of these other ones shouldn't. So I can utilize the tool that way. If I come to the sensitivity report, you'll notice that I have the ability to break out my content types by these different labels. So if I'm really concerned about confidential data, I can slice the data using the visual. I can also come in here and just filter it using confidential. So now I can see, okay, well, what users are working with confidential data the most? Are there users that shouldn't be? And then where does this confidential data live? And I can start to audit my tenant usage using the Purview sensitivity labels. There's a few other reports in here that could be useful. I can start to look at inventory of items by workspace. One of the use cases I thought would be interesting would be to track if certain content was being shared from people's My Workspaces. So that's usually a frowned upon thing to do from a content management standpoint. So I could try to track down what assets live in people's My Workspaces and whether those have been shared with people. So a few different other views of similar information. But one of the things I wanted to point out here was that because this is a workspace and this is a data set, I can actually come in here and I can connect to this data set in the Power BI desktop. So if I come in here to a new report and I come to get data, I'm going to come back to this Microsoft Fabric option and come to Power BI data sets and choose connect. So this is a pretty cool feature for admins if they want to build out their own monitoring solution based on these data sets. So I can come in here and I can connect to one of these data sets and choose connect, and you'll notice that I get a list of tables and measures that are included in the data set. So I can come in here and maybe I want to add our username from this data set, and I want to look at some certain measures here. So we'll look at the number of activities and workspaces. So you can start to, again, build out this customized analysis. But the real power, I think, that comes into this play is with the last feature that I wanted to demonstrate for you guys, which is the long anticipated GA status of composite models. So composite models aren't new to Power BI. They've been around for years. There was an update to this where you could connect to Power BI data sets and other analysis services data sets using a composite model. And while that was in preview, it was called the direct query for Power BI data sets and analysis services feature. But now that it's GA, it's going back to being called composite models. So continuing on with this admin monitoring demonstration, if I come back to my Power BI report here that we're building, you'll notice that I have this information down in the bottom right that shows I'm connected live to a Power BI data set, the name of the data set, but then I have the option to make changes to this model. And this initiates the composite model feature, and I can add a local model to this PBIX file and start to model it like I would any other data set. And from an admin monitoring perspective, that's cool because I can come back out and do things like connect to another Power BI data set. So now I can connect to that other purview data set, and now I can start to build out a more holistic admin monitoring data set. So I can come in here and connect to that data set, and I can choose the artifacts to include. I'll just choose everything. And now you'll see here that we have a potential security risk. And when you combine data sources, you need to be cautious and that you trust the owners that built the data set. So we'll choose OK because, well, the Power BI team built these two. So of course we trust them, right? So now you'll see I have these different tables that have been added based on that other data set that we added, and you see the direct mode is, the storage mode is now direct query. And if I come into the modeling view here, you'll see I have the different data sets here. And the cool thing about these composite models is data coming from one data set over here, data set over there. I can start to relate these. So now, if, let's say I want to join this on my different user, I can come in and join these fields and start to build a more holistic data model here. The other things I could add user licensing information from Microsoft 365. Maybe I could add some other team metadata that might be important for governance. So just a pretty cool way that you can start to combine data sets here using composite models. So if I come back to my measures here, maybe I want to see again the number of endorsed items and certified and promoted and the percentage, and start to see this by my different users here. So again, it looks like that join is working, and a pretty cool way that you can use the new certified, the new composite model feature in Power BI. Okay, so that wraps up the updates for admins. And so we like to close these presentations out with updates we're excited about. And these are really the same as the part one features that we're excited about, and mainly that's around the Fabric platform and the new Fabric features that are being brought into the Power BI platform. And so the first one we have here is the Copilot for Power BI, which is this chat GPT like experience for your own corporate data. In part one, we showed you Copilot for Power BI and how that's been integrated into the quick measures experience to essentially help you write DAX. So it'll be interesting to see how they bake this Copilot AI model into the rest of the Power BI platform. So I'm hoping that we get a Fabric demo environment spun up. Right now, our product development team is hit a few snags when trying to port over some of our ETL code to the new Fabric platform, and they're currently working with the Microsoft team to work through the limitations there. So we're hoping within the next few months that we get a working demo version of this. So stay tuned for that, and I'll be sure to share what the new Fabric experience is will look like. So that's what that update is. And then also the feature parity between paginated reports and the Power BI service, and really getting a more modern experience for authoring these paginated reports than the old school report builder app that some of us may be familiar with. So those are the updates we're excited about. And go ahead and wrap up here and go ahead and promote these events that we have coming up. If you want to check out how AI is the new AI features in the Power BI ecosystems and how you can leverage that on top of your ERP data, you can sign up for our session on Tuesday. And then if you're looking to get more hands-on with Power BI, we also have a workshop on Thursday that you could register for.